Alright, class. Today we're going to talk about 5.2 literal equations. What we've got is we've got equations with several variables, and what we want to do is we want to solve for just a single variable. So, as example for number 1, they want us to solve for y. Notice that we have both x's and y's. However, the y is what we want to solve for. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line down from my equal sign to split the equation to its two halves. And we need to get rid of anything that is not inherently y. That would be this negative 5x. Well, to get rid of the negative 5x, I need to add 5x. And what I do to one side, I must do to both. Now, negative 5x plus 5x, well, that equals 0, so it cancels out. And over here, we're left with just y. A plus sign, meaning positive, does not need to carry down. Equals. Now, this negative 56 and the 5x are not the same. These are regular numbers. These are x numbers. I can't combine them, which means I just write them side by side. I'm going to put 5x minus 56. Now, I could have put negative 56 plus 5x, and I still would have been right, but we usually don't like to lead with a negative, and we usually also like to have our variables in front. So I'm going to box this answer. It's a little bit cleaner than this other one, but I would accept this one. Notice that I am done. Y has been solved for, and so it is the only thing that we need to worry about. There's nothing else to do here, just solve for y. And because we don't know what x is, we don't know what number y is, but we know that y is equal to 5x minus 56. Now if we move on to problem number 2, we want to solve for w. Now this is just the simple perimeter equation. If you have a rectangle, we want to find the perimeter of it, you can use this equation. Well, let's say they've given us the perimeter, they've given us the length, and they want us to find the width. Well, instead of plugging these in and solving for the width, we can go ahead and solve for w and make this much easier later. So, we want this w by itself. Draw the line down the equals bar, and you'll notice that this 2L is something we want to get rid of. Well, I'm going to subtract 2L from both sides. That will eliminate it for me. Now, P and negative 2L, even though they both have a variable, the variable is not the same. Because the variable is not the same, we can't just combine them. No, we actually have to write them side by side, and I'm going to write it as P minus 2L. Again, I'd rather not lead with a negative number. When I say equals, well, 2L minus 2L, that's 0, so it has canceled. And I'm left with 2W. Now, I'm still not done. Notice that we have this 2 here. Well, I want to know what W is all by itself, not what this 2W is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Notice I didn't just divide one term over here, I divided them both. Well, over here, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and so we're just left with W. On the other side, however, we have some things. Now, if there was a number in front of P that I could divide by 2, I would go ahead and do that division. But because there's not, I'm going to go ahead and write this as, well, 1/2 P, because it's 1P and 2 makes 1/2 P, minus, because I've got the minus sign, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1, which we don't need to write, and we just write the letter L. So I can say that W is equal to 1/2 P minus L. Now, where I was going earlier, and I kind of interrupted myself mid-sentence, is that I can actually just leave this as P minus 2L all over 2 equals W, and that is still correct. And in fact, because I don't like fractions, and I would rather just leave this as a division sign, we'll just go ahead and work with it like this. Now again, this is still correct, and this is correct. They're both the same. Algebraically, they equal the same thing. I just happen to prefer the way this one looks, and it allowed me to stop here. I didn't have to do any more thinking to get to this. You may prefer to write it this way. That again is also fine. I will give you full credit for it, and so will most other teachers. Now if we move on to number 3. Here we want to solve the equation for R. Now you may not know this equation. This is actually an equation involving interest rates. Not that that matters, because we just want to solve for R. Later when we have word problems and equations, it'll be more important what these are. But for now, just knowing that we want to solve for R is good enough. Draw the line down the equal sign. Now, normally if these were just strictly numbers and we wanted to solve this, we would distribute this P across. But that's going to make things more difficult. Instead, let's go ahead and move the P to the other side. Well, I do that by going, well, what am I doing with this P? Well, I would be multiplying by P, and the opposite of multiplying is division. So, on the left-hand side, I get A over P equals 1 plus RT. Now, you'll notice I didn't put the parentheses. The reason is that I don't need the parentheses anymore. I've gotten rid of the number in front, and so having parentheses around here wouldn't mean anything. So I just didn't write them, and now I'm moving on. Again, I still want to get R by itself, and this time I'm going to get rid of the 1. Now I can't get rid of the T because I'll have to divide, and as you saw up here, when we divide the whole thing, and that's going to make things very complicated if I try to do that. So I want to just go ahead and subtract 1 from both sides. Now, A over P minus 1 doesn't do anything. I can't change anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and write A over P minus 1 equals RT, because 1 minus 1 canceled. Now, I still want to get the R by itself, and I've got this T that's in my way. Well, just like when I said a number and a letter side by side mean that you multiply, 2 letters side by side also mean that you multiply. So, the opposite of that is, of course, to divide. And so we get that R equals A over P minus 1 divided by T. And I know this doesn't look pretty, and we could in fact go through and clean this up just a little bit using some properties of division. However, I am just happy I've got an R by itself. I'm done. Even though it doesn't look as pretty as we would like it, it is still something that we can use to solve this equation. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it like this. You don't always get a pretty equation when you're solving for these, but as long as you get the variable by itself and the math is all done correctly, you'll still get the answer right. Well, let's take a look at number 4 now. This time I want h. And we have fractions. Well, you've probably heard me say this. Fractions make things complicated. I don't like them. So we want to get rid of the fraction. We get rid of fractions by multiplying by the denominator. Since the denominator is 2, I'm going to multiply by 2. On the left-hand side, that gives me 2a equals, well, 1/2 times 2 is 1, so they will cancel out, and we just get bh. Now remember, we're trying to solve for h. So that means we need to get rid of the b. 2 letters side by side means that they're being multiplied. We need to do the opposite, which is to divide. So on the left-hand side, we get 2a divided by b equals h. I'm going to move my equal sign down just a little bit. Pretty this up a tad. And so we are done. H is successfully alone. We will call that an answer. And now for problem number 5, the last one of this packet, we want to solve for t. Our bar, of course. Now earlier, this is just like what we did on problem number 3, where we would have this p in front and we divided by p. We're going to do the same thing with n. I want to get rid of the n, so I divide. Our n's, they cancel, and so we get 2s over n equals a plus t. Again, it's t that we want to get alone, so we need to get rid of the a. It's connected through addition, so we need to either add or subtract. Because it's positive, we need to subtract. Again, none of this will combine, and so we have 2s, make sure that it looks like an s and not a 5, over n minus a, pretty up my a's a little bit, they're not 9s, they are the letter a, equals t, because a minus a cancels out. Now, here, we are done. So, on this packet, we have a lot of letters, a lot of variables, but we don't have to actually plug any math. There's nothing for the calculator to do here. All we're doing is following the steps that we were following in our last unit where we were solving for a variable, except for there's no math. All we're doing is writing down the steps that we do and keeping it in a format that is at least readable. Not necessarily pretty all the time, but it is readable and easy to follow. All right. Good luck on the rest of your assignment. I will see you in class.